Hello students, I cordially welcome you all back to this session. Let's make a move onto the conclusive part of the story entitled The Voter Year and Today to finish the things off. Students, before having gone through with the main script of this story, let's recall what our previous session was all about. Taking an account of our previous session, what did we get to see is that we the readers were made to know about the oppositional party that existed in the village called Umofia, that was Progressive Organization Party, which was established by the tribal people who lived their life on the coastal area of the sea, or we can say on the shore of the sea, in order to rescue themselves from being annihilated politically, culturally, socially, and religiously as well. Though it was made clear the fact that even the leaders of POP were aware that they had no chance at all to win against our Marcus Ibe, even to give a straight fight. It was highly impossible, though they managed to provide some cars and loudspeakers to some local rascals and thugs whom we call as criminals to go all around the village to make it a campaign and to distribute the money. As these local rascals and criminals were suggested to make it a campaign, they did it with a lot of noise. No villagers came to know how much money had this POP team let loose in that Umofia while campaigning. But it was said to be the considerable amount was spent by the leaders of POP team. But at the end of the campaign, the local campaigners who were local rascals and criminals ended up this campaign becoming rich. And later, what did we get to see is that everything was moving on according to the plan set up by or put up by our Rufus Okeke. Later, he had a strange visit from the leader of POP team. Both of them were well known to each other. Both of them were familiar to each other before this meeting. They might even be called as a friends. Such a kind of intimation was left in between them. But now the visiting of the leader of POP was like a business and cold. He intended no words to be wasted in between them. When he came before our Rufus Okeke, he placed 5 pounds before Roof and said to him, "We want your vote. You should favor us." On hearing these words from the leader of POP team, Rufus Okeke got up from his sitting position from the chair where he sat on and directly went to the outside door to close it, and he did it in a hurry and came back to his chair where he was earlier. The brief exercise that he started moving on to close the door and coming back to his chair where he was earlier, the duration of time that he had taken provided an abundant time for Rufus Okeke to consider the offer that was provided by the leader of POP team. As he was speaking, the leader of POP team, his eyes never left the red notes which were on the floor, and it was made in the form of a comparison by Chinua Achebe, saying that he seemed, Rufus Okeke appeared to be mesmerized by the picture of the cocoa FOMO while harvesting his crop. This is how Rufus Okeke kept his eyes on the red notes which were on the floor. And later, what did we come across is that Rufus Okeke fixed his eyes, he glared his eyes on the red notes which were on the floor. Already we came to know about this. he didn't want to leave this opportunity to go away from him. And later, there was a little conversation in between Rufus Okeke and the leader of PvP team in terms of whether does he take the money or not. That's provided by the leader of PvP team. Finally, as a result of their conversation, Rufus Okeke admitted to take the money to give his vote for the opposition party. In the following paragraph, so we will come to know how he had dealt with that the leader of a PvP team, and later when he had shown his approval to take the money that was offered by the leader of PvP team, the man who stood outside of the house of the home of our Rufus Okeke pushed his companion or friend forward to bring an object which was completely covered with a red cloth, and he made a move to bring that object forward, and he came forward to remove the cover which was on that object, and it looked like if anyone had seen that it would have been a different one. He would have been stricken with a fear if anyone had seen it. Such a fearsome things were seen in that little object which was carried out forward by the man who stood outside, and some feathers were stuck onto the object. This is how the thing which was covered with a red cloth looked like. What did that contain in it is that the native deity which was called as Aye, that came from Mabantha. It's a neighboring village of our Umofia. And why was it carried is that it was only to make our Rufus Okeke to take an oath or swear, or we can say promise on that Aye to vote for Maduka, one who belonged to the oppositional party, Progressive Organization Party. If he fails to do so, or if he fails to cast his vote for Maduka, this Aye will take note, or we can say this Aye will look after Rufus Okeke. When Rufus Okeke had seen the presence of Aye before him, his heart was torn into many pieces as he was frightened about it. Already he came to know about the name and fame of this Aye in these things. But our Rufus Okeke was a man of quick decision. He never took the time, a long time, to make any decisions. And he asked himself a question: what could a single vote, if I vote for Maduka, what could that single vote take away a Marcus's certain victory? Never. This is what he asked himself, and he assured himself that he will cast his paper or ballot paper for Maduka if this Aye doesn't look after him. And after taking a promise over this Aye, the one who brought this object to inward, the same man took this object or Aye out of the home of our Rufus Okeke, and he put it again in the same car which was outside of his home. And at the same time, when the man took this Aye into the car, Rufus Okeke followed him and stood up at the door, and he said to himself he had no chance at all to win against Marcus Ibe. And later, what did we get to see is that, and he assured himself that if he gets a few votes now, it's enough. he will get more votes in the coming election. People would also hear the fact that the leader of POP team gives out only pounds, which was not used by the people of that Umofia, but not the shillings. And those people will also listen what's happening all around these parties. This is the point where I stopped teaching you people. Let's see what happens over here in the following paragraph. Election morning. Finally, the wait was over. This was the day came into presence in the village of Umofia that all the villagers of Umofia waited for. The day came into existence. That was an election morning. Everything was set. All the preparations were made to make it an election. The great day every 5 years when the people exercise power. Election morning or the day of election was a great day. It came every 5 years once when all the people exercise their power, which means when all the people exercise or put their power into course or action, we can say. In every once in 5 year, all the people put their power into usage to elect their representative. That is the power. That is the power that Umofian villagers had. By using this power, they had elected Marcus Ibe as their representative, and we can say as the Minister of Culture in the outgoing government. And again, they had met with the same day after the 5 years of their successful completion, having seen nothing development done by Marcus Ibe in these 5 years. Again, they had met with the same day when they put their sovereign power into use to elect their representatives, whether beaten posters on walls of houses. How much happiness was left in that election in conducting or in carrying out all the actions on the day is that weather beaten posters, which means the posters that were stuck on the walls of the houses were weather beaten, which means they were very hardened, they were very tough to tear out. Such a thickness was in those posters that were stuck onto the walls of the houses, and tree trunks and telegraph poles. Tree trunks are the main stem of a tree, and on the other hand, it was the telegraph poles were also made to stand by the campaigners of both the parties to conduct their election. And in the similar way, we can also understand the fact that these tree trunks and telegraph poles were stood by the two sides of the roads of that Umofian village to to what we call to stick their walls, to stick their posters onto those tree trunks and telegraph poles on the either sides of the roads of that Umofian village. The few that were still all called out their message to those who could read. The campaigners, or we can say the stalwarts or followers of either parties, indulged in calling out their message. They shouted very loudly. Even their nerves were standing out as if they were as if they came out of their neck. Such a noise was, loud noise was created by those loud noise was created by those campaigners of either team. Both the team's campaigners were calling very loudly their message to the people, one who could read and write, whom we call as a literate fellows. And what were they calling out very loudly is that vote for the People's Alliance Party. The campaigners who were in the favor of PAP team, they were loudly shouting at the people, one who could read and write. What were they shouting is that vote for the People's Alliance Party and vote for Progressive Organization Party. The stalwarts or followers of Progressive Organization Party were never left behind. They did the same thing as the leaders, as the followers of PAP team had done. They shouted in a very loud voice saying that vote for Progressive Organization Party. They kept shouting at the people, one who could read and write, vote for PAP, vote for POP. The posters that were torn called out as much of the message as they could. All the stalwarts or followers of either teams shouted very loudly at the people, one who could read and write. The pressure or the strength that these campaigners put while shouting out their message to those people, even the hardened or the tough posters were torn were torn out, as all those campaigners made a lot of noise while calling out their message to those people. This is what we see in this present paragraph. Let's see what is said by Chinua Achebe in this following paragraph. As usual, Chief the Honorable Marcus Ibe was doing things in a grand style. Earlier, in the initial stage of this story, we already came to know about how Marcus Ibe did all these things. In the similar way, Chief the Honorable Marcus Ibe, I told you people, why was this Chief the Honorable given to Marcus Ibe? Why was it given is that I am going to remind you people why was this Chief the Honorable was given to Marcus Ibe is that as he was appointed as a Minister of Culture in the outgoing government, he was given such a title to only to honor him, only to respect him. It's a respective word. Usually, as usual, Chief the Honorable Marcus Ibe kept doing his things in his own grand style. He had hired a high life band from Umuru. What he did for this for this election is that he had hired. What do you people mean by hired? Is that he had appointed a high life in a sense excessive band. Which means a group of musicians who play music for the dance is called band from Umuru. He had appointed an excessive group of musicians who play music for the dance of the people of the Umofia, taking them from Umuru village. Here, Umuru village is another neighboring village of the Umofia. He had appointed such an excessive band, taking it from Umuru village and stationed it at such a distance from the voting booths as just managed to be lawful. What he did after taking that high life band from Umuru is that he stationed it, which means he assigned that high life band or excessive group of musicians to a particular place. They should be there only at such a distance from the voting booths. You people might have seen at the time of the election, the people were not allowed to get entered into the area where a line is being drawn at such a distance from the voting booths. As I told you people earlier, uh, at a little distance there is a line being drawn, not letting anyone to enter in it. To maintain it to be lawful, what did our Marcus Ibe do is that he assigned the group of musicians to play their music for the dance of the people of that Umofia he assigned them at a place which is a little distance away from the voting booths. Just he did it only to be it lawful, only to maintain the law. He did this work. Many villagers danced to the music as the excessive group of musicians started playing their music. All the villagers came forward and grouped together, and they danced all together for the music that was played by the group of musicians. Their ballot paper held aloft while dancing to each other in a group. The ballot papers that were kept in their hand were held in the air. That's what we call aloft. What do people mean by aloft is that in the air. All the people who danced to the music that was played by the group of musicians, they held their ballot papers in their hand above their head. That's what we call aloft. Before proceeding to the booths, when was it done is that before these people making their way towards the booth to cast their vote for the parties that they were in the favor of. Before taking themselves on towards the booths, these people danced to the music that was played by the group of musicians. Chief, the Honorable Marcus Ibe sat in the owner's corner of his enormous green car. Our Marcus Ibe, he used to sit in the owner's corner of his enormous green car, the car that he bought after being elected as the Minister of Culture in the outgoing government. It was in the red, it was in the green color. It was an enormous one. It was the biggest one, the biggest car that anyone had hardly seen in that locality. In that biggest car that our Marcus Ibe had bought earlier, he used to sit in this day at the owner's corner and smiled and nodded. What was he doing sitting inside the owner's corner is that he gave a smile at everyone who used to come to cast their vote for, and nodded his head, nodded in the sense he let his head forward and take it backward. That's what we call nodded. With the symbolification of approval, or that's what we call acceptance, this Marcus Ibe kept his head nodding front and back. One enlightened villager came up to the car. Meanwhile, as Marcus Ibe was sitting in his car, one enlightened villager, enlightened in a sense, what we call, and not ignorant. He was well educated, who had much wisdom in him. He was not an illiterate fellow. One enlightened villager came up to the car after having seen our Marcus Ibe. He came up to the car only to congratulate him. After having seen him, he made his way forward towards the car where Marcus Ibe was sitting all alone, smiling and nodding his head at the people who made their way towards the voting booth to cast their vote for. At this time, uh, an enlightened villager who was not ignorant about the election, he used to come up to the car to meet our Marcus Ibe and shook hands with the great man. After coming at our Marcus Ibe, what he did is that he had shaken his hands with our great man. Already we had witnessed how Marcus Ibe was a great man after being elected as the Minister of Culture in the outgoing government. This man, this enlightened villager, after coming to the car, he had shaken his hands with our Marcus Ibe and said in advance, "Congrats." Before getting the result of that election, he congratulated him, saying that congrats. This word, congrats, that was blessed by, that was congratulated by the enlightened villager, immediately set the pattern. The word congrats that was said by the enlightened villager that all of a sudden, taking no time at all, set a pattern over there. Hundreds of admirers shook Marcus's hand and said, "Corn grass." Have a look at the way how our uh, Chinua Achebe made use of the satirical statements over here. Hundreds of admirers of Marcus Ibe came up to the car as an enlightened villager did. All of them, there were hundreds of people, scores of admirers, one who used to admire or prize Marcus Ibe came up to the car and met him, and they too did the same thing as an enlightened villager had done to Marcus Ibe. They had too shaken the hands of Marcus Ibe and they also congratulated him, saying that corn grass. Have a look at the way how this congrats was turned into corn grass. Corn grass, the word that is used by Chinua Achebe is a way of what we call way of satiring the actions of all the villagers. That is how they entertained themselves being a part of that election. And having seen this corn grass, we come to know that our author has made use of a lot of satirical statements throughout this story. As these people or hundreds of admirers were illiterate fellow, and as they didn't know about the things that were happening all around them, they congratulated Marcus Ibe, saying that corn grass. Here, congrats was turned into corn grass as those hundreds of admirers were illiterate. Roof and the other organizers were prancing up and down. At the moment, what was happening all around in that village is that Roof, as he was a stalwart of Marcus Ibe and other organizers who were the reason for conducting this election on that day itself, were prancing up and down, which means were moving up and down the street as if they were proud about themselves on conducting that election on that day. These organizers were very proud of themselves being the organizers, so that they made their way forward and backward on the street, giving last minute advice to the voters and pouring with the sweat. Why were they prancing or moving down up and down on the street is that they provided enough last minute advice to the voters who used to go towards the voting booth to cast their vote for, so that these organizers were made their way forward and downward on the street, giving it a last minute advice to cast their vote in the favor of PAP and POP as well. Either parties campaigners did the same thing, giving a last minute advice and pouring with a sweat. At the moment they were busy, as they were busy. How much were they busy is that even they produced a lot of perspiration on their face. They became sweat. They produced a lot of sweat, which was a salty fluid that was coming out on their face. What were they suggesting to the voters is that do not forget. They suggested like this: do not forget to cast their vote for Marcus Ibe, or it may be for Madka. Do not forget to cast your vote for. He said again to a group of illiterate women who seemed ready to burst with enthusiasm and good humor. He said again, here, who does this word he refer to? Is it our Rufus Okeke? He said again and again. Rufus OKK kept saying the group of people who were going towards the voting booth to give their vote for. He again said to group of illiterate women, and a group of illiterate women made their way towards the voting booth to give their vote for. At the moment when he had seen those that group of illiterate women, our Rufus OKK having seen them, he again advised them like this: do not forget to vote, do not forget to cast your vote for Marcus Ipe, who seemed ready to burst with enthusiasm and good humor. This group of illiterate women appeared to be ready, bursting out with enthusiasm and good humor as well. Even the illiterate women were left with enthusiasm. They had so much of zeal in them. They had so much of merry. They were left with the happiness as they were the part of this election, and good humor as well. As all these illiterate women were making their way towards the voting booth, they were left with enthusiasm and good humor as well. And what he is further suggested, the group of illiterate women, is that our sin is the motor car. Don't forget to cast your vote for the motor car. That is the motor car you should vote for. That is what our Rufus OKK advised the group of illiterate women. And in the following paragraph, what we witness is that, like the one Marcus is sitting inside, like anyone does the things in their own style, Marcus Ibe also is sitting in his enormous green car, smiling and nodding towards the people who made their way towards the voting booth to cast their vote for. He does his things that are with him. Thank you, mother, said Ruth. As one of the mother went towards the booth, Rufus OKK said to her, thank you. He had shown his gratitude towards the mother, one who passed by our roof. At this moment, when he had witnessed the presence of a mother who made her way towards that voting booth, he thanked her very much for the way how she had shown her enthusiasm and good humor while going out. It is the same car. Again, he kept saying to the people who had gone towards the booth, it is the same car that you should give your vote for. The same car that is shown on the box that is kept inside the voting booth. You should provide your vote for. The same car. The box with the car shown on its body is a box for you. The box with the car shown. There is a box inside the voting booth. On that box, the picture of the car is pasted on it. That is being shown on its body. The box is for you only, and into that box you have to put your ballot paper in. The same car should be opted out or chosen out by you. That is what he had said there. Don't look at the other with the man's head. There is another box kept inside the voting booth. You must not even look at the other box with the man's head. On that other box, man's head is stuck onto its body. You should not look even at the other box which has the man's head on it. It is for those whose heads are not correct. The man's head for those people whose heads are not working properly, who are very crazy enough, whose heads are not properly working, they can vote their, they can put their vote for man's head. That is what Rufus Okeke said to the people who had gone towards the voting booth. This was greeted with loud laughter. At the moment, on hearing those words from Rufus Okeke, this was greeted in a sense, reacted with a loud laughter. The people who were surrounding Rufus Okeke and who were everywhere at that place, they reacted with a loud laughter. The words of Rufus Okeke brought them a smile on their face. They produced a loud guffaw at this moment, having heard the words of Rufus Okeke when he says like this. Ruf cast a quick and busy glance towards the minister and received a smile of appreciation. At this moment, Rufus Okeke cast a quick Rufus, what he did is that he threw a quick, taking no time at all. Rufus Okeke, all of a sudden, he started looking at our Marcus Ibe, who was sitting inside his enormous green car. Rufus Okeke, only to get attracted, uh, only to be appreciated by his leader Marcus Ibe, he gave out or throw out a quick look at his leader Marcus Ibe and busy like glance. What he further did is that busy like glance, he started glaring, or he started looking or fixing his eyes towards the minister who was inside his car sitting all alone, smiling and nodding towards the group of voters, and received a smile of appreciation when he had seen, when he kept looking at his minister. At the same moment, he received a smile of appreciation from his minister for the way how he did his things, as he advised the group of people who made their way towards the voting booth. Vote for the car, he shouted again. Again and again, he kept shouting at the group of people who had gone towards the voting booth. Vote for the car. He shouted it very loudly. He screamed with all that he had, with all the strength that he had in him. Vote for the car. He shouted again and again, all the veins in his neck standing out. Meanwhile, as he is screaming very loudly at the people, like vote for the car, all the veins in his neck were standing out. The strength or the power that our Marcus Ibe put to shout, to call, vote for the car, as he shouting it very loudly, all the veins in his neck were standing out as if they were coming out of his neck. That is how he invested his all of his strength to shout at the people, saying, vote for the car. Vote for the car and you will ride in it. Again and again, he kept shouting at the people, saying that vote for the car, you will ride one day in it. If you cast your vote for Marcus Ibe, one very fine day you will be able to ride in it. There is no need to walk all alone. You will find yourself one day when you can ride in the same car. Which means what he was trying to tell or advise is a group of voters who were making their way towards the voting booth is that if they cast their vote one day, so much developments will be made by this Rufus, this Marcus Ibe. One very fine day, they can be able to ride in the same car. If or if we don't, which means if the people don't do, which means if they don't put their vote for Marcus Ibe, our upcoming generation or upcoming children will pipe the same sharp old girl. Which means what he was trying to tell is people or the group of voters is that our children, even our children, one day they would face when they cry a lot. That's what we call same sharp. They would cry as if you are not ready to give your vote for Marcus Ibe, one day our children will cry. They would face that day. This is what he warned the people who made their way towards the voting booths. The band struck up a new number. At the moment, again, the group of musicians struck up in the sense play a new number. As usual, they kept playing music for the dance. The people who had shown their presence at that place, they danced for the music that was played by the group of musicians. A new number was stuck up by the group of musicians at this moment. What was that new number is that why walk when you can ride? Why walk? Why do you people need to walk when you can ride? If you cast your vote for Marcus Ibe, you can be able to ride in the same car. That's what the new number says all about. And in the following paragraph, what do we see is that in spite of his apparent calm and confidence, Chief the Honorable Marcus was a relentless stickler for details. In spite of his apparent calm, the nature of Marcus Ibe is like this. He has had a nature that is apparent in a sense, calm in a sense, clear calm. It was clearly observed by all of us that he has had enough calmness in him. He never ever made a lot of noise. He never ever misbehaved before anyone else. He kept himself the nature of calm in him. He had so much of tranquility in him in spite of his apparent calm. Already we have come to know the fact that he had a clear calmness in him, and the level of confidence was much in our Marcus Ibe. He believed himself that again he would be elected in the upcoming election as well. That much of confidence was left in our Marcus Ibe. Though he was calm and confident enough, he was a relentless stickler, relentless, which means he was a persistent. He stuck onto his belief for details, which means the details that were being collected on the day of election, who had cast their vote for him or Maduka. This information wanted to be known by this Marcus Ibe. Such a relentless worker he was, a stickler in a sense, the person who goes on persisting or sticking onto the information that he wants to get. He was relentless, which means he was a very tireless man. Having no tiredness in him, he stuck onto his idea to get the detail. Who had cost his or her vote for? He knew he would win what the newspapers called a landslide victory. Already, I told you people earlier that he came to know about the fact that he would win in this election. What newspapers called a landslide victory, what the newspapers called this victory, that is known to our that is believed by our Marcus Abbey is that a landslide victory, which means which with a large margin he would win in this election. He believed in himself, he believed in his campaign boys, he believed in his luck and in his fortune as well. That's what he came to know all about him. He was made sure himself that he would certainly, having no doubt at all, win in this election. What the newspapers would write on their pages using landslide victory with a large margin, he would win in this election. But he didn't wish. But our Marcus Abbey, he didn't wish to give out a single vote at the opponent party. That is what he didn't wish to see. Even so, to throw away a single vote, what our Marcus Abbey didn't want to see is that to give away or throw away a single vote for Maduka. He didn't want to see that one. Each vote of Umofian villagers should be given to him only. That is what he desired for. That is what he wanted to see by all the people of that Umofia. As soon as the first rush of voters was over, he promptly asked his campaign boys to go one at a time and put in their ballot papers. He observed that the first rush of voters was over, as all the people of that Umofia were in a hurry to cast their vote for the either parties. When it was observed or witnessed by Marcus Abbey as he was sitting all alone at the corners at the owner's corner, smiling and nodding at the people and giving a smile of appreciation towards our Rufus Okeke. At the same moment, when he observed the first rush of voters was successfully over, he promptly asked his campaign boys. At the moment when he had seen the completion of the first rush of the people or voters over, he promptly asked his campaign boys. Now he made himself to say or advise his campaign boys to go at once to voting booth to cast their vote for. That is what he said here. He asked his campaign boys, or we can say his followers, to go at once, to go towards the voting booth to give their vote for at a time and put in their ballot papers. Only to put their ballot papers in the voting booth, he asked his campaign boys to go towards the voting booth. And here in the following paragraph, what we see is that Roof, you had better go first, he said, as he summoned his followers to give their vote for. He first addressed Rufus Okeke to go first instead of letting anyone to go towards the booth to give their vote for. He advised Rufus Okeke to go first before anyone goes there. You had better go first. It could even be more better to go. That's what he said to Roof. Roof's spirits fell at the moment on hearing those words from his minister Marcus Abbey. His spirits that he kept all through the day fell all of a sudden. They fell to the ground. The spirits or enthusiasm that he kept all alive in his mind all through the day while making it an advice to the people or group of voters, his spirits, on hearing those words from his master, they fell to the ground. Why? Because is that he had sworn on the he who was a native deity, and on the other hand, he didn't want to leave his minister Marcus Abbey. That's what That's what does show us all about the loyalty that is being shown by Rufus Okeke towards his master, with whom he had been with always since many years. But he let no one see it. But our Rufus Okeke managed himself by letting no one to see it. The worries that were kept by Rufus Okeke as the spirits were falling down by him, he letting no one to see it is deep worries, or what we say, the spirits that were fallen off. All the morning he had masked his deep worry with a surface exertion which was unusual even for him. All through the morning, since morning, he had masked his deep worry. What do you people masked? What do you people mean by masked is that he had hidden his deep worry, he had concealed his deep worry that he kept inside. The deep worry that he had in himself is that he had taken an oath on the IA, promising that I will vote for Madka. And on the other hand, he didn't wish to leave Marcus Ibe left behind him. So that all through the morning, our Rufus Okeke managed himself to hide all of his deep worries inside himself, not letting anyone to know his deep worries with a surface exertion, using his physical and mental energy that he had gained in him. That's what we call surface exertion. By using his mental and physical exertion, or by his physical and mental energy, our Rufus Okeke, he had hidden all of his deep worry, not letting anyone to see it, which was unusual even for him. To hide all of his deep worry was a very difficult one, was a very challenging one, though he managed to hide his deep worry. Even it was an unusual even for Rufus Okeke at that moment. Though he was an intelligent manipulator, taking control of each villagers of that Umofia and knowing everything what was happening all around the village, it was an unusual matter even for Rufus Okeke to hide his deep worry. Though he used his mental and physical energy to hide it. Now he dashed off in a springy fashion towards the booths. Though Rufus Okeke, having no alternative, he dashed off. Dashed off in a sense, he got down himself towards the voting booths in a springy fashion, which means in an active mode. He kept himself in an active mode, not letting anyone to know his deep worries. He doesn't want to let anyone to know his deep worry. That's why he kept himself in an active mode or energetic mode. That's why he got himself down the street to let himself towards the voting booth to cast his vote for in his springy, or we can say active fashion. As he made his way, he confronted a policeman at the entrance. At the moment, what he had observed is that there was a policeman standing all alone at the entrance. What he did is that standing there, searched for searched him for illegal ballot papers and passed him. As Rufus Okeke made his way towards the voting booth to cast his vote for, he witnessed the policeman standing all alone at the entrance of voting booth. The policeman searched our Rufus Okeke for the illegal ballot paper, whether he had an illegal ballot paper in him or not. With this intent, policeman was standing all alone to search the people and let them to go inside to cast their vote. After searching roof, a policeman let let our roof inside the voting booth to give his vote for, and passed him, and later having seen or having witnessed nothing in our Rufus Okeke policeman, a policeman allowed Rufus Okeke to go inside the voting booth. Then the electoral officer explained to him, and when he made his way inside the voting booth, what he observed is that there was an electoral officer sitting. He explained to him, after getting himself inside the voting booth, he had confronted or faced the electoral officer who was assigned to carry out the the course or actions that were assigned to him. He explained to him. The electoral officer explained in an elaborative way to our Rufus Okeke about the two boxes that were kept inside the voting booth. There were two boxes kept inside the voting booth. About these two boxes, an electoral officer explained to our roof. By this time, the spring had gone clean out of his walk. At the moment when he was inside this voting booth, the spring, which is a symbolification of activeness or energetic way of mood that had gone away from our Rufus Okeke. At the moment he was frightened. Who should he vote for? So that the spring that he had in him had gone away from him. He sidled in. The moment our Rufus Okeke, he moved in. That's what we call sidled in. Our Rufus Okeke moved inside and was confronted by the car and head. When he kept moving inside, he confronted or faced by the car and the head, which were shown on those two boxes kept inside this voting booth. He had witnessed the presence of the sin of car and the man's head inside this voting booth. He brought out his ballot paper from his pocket and looked at it. At the moment, Rufus Okeke, with some fierceness in him, he had brought out his ballot paper out of his pocket. He plunged his hand into his pocket to take out the ballot paper that he kept in it. He had brought out his ballot paper out of his pocket and looked at it. Taking the ballot paper out of his pocket, Rufus Okeke kept glaring at it. He started looking at the ballot paper that was taken out of his pocket. How could he betray Marcus even in secret? Now he asked himself a question: how could he cheat Marcus Ibe even in secret? He was inside the voting booth to give or cast his vote for. Already he had taken an oath. Already he had taken a promise over the Eve, which was a native deity of Umuru. And now he remembered that he had taken an oath over it. So that on the other hand, he had been caught in between a dilemma. Who should he give his vote for? He didn't wish to leave his Marcus Ibe left behind him. So that he asked himself, how could he cheat his minister Marcus Ibe, with whom he had been since many years. He resolved to go back. Now he resolved, which means he determined himself to go back to the other man who provided him 5 pounds earlier when he met our Rufus Okeke. So he determined to go back. He determined to make his way back towards the other man who offered him 5 pounds earlier to give his vote for Madka. Wu was with an oppositional party of PAP and return is £5. Why he resolved to go back is that he wanted to give or return is £5 that he offered that the leader of POP offered Rufus Wakeke in his home. £5 with an exclamation. Again he reminded himself £5 that he was offered by the leader of POP. He knew at once it was impossible. He was too aware the fact that uh, it was an impossible task for him to give or return, to give back or return the money, that is £5, back to the hands of the leader of POP. It was an impossible task for him. He had sworn on that he. Why was it impossible? Is that he reminded himself that he had taken an oath or he had sworn on that he, which was a native deity or goddess of that Umuru village, which was a neighboring village of our uh, Umofia. The notes were red. He kept remembering the notes which were offered by the other man, the leader of POP. They were red in color. The cocoa farmer busy at work. Again, he kept remembering that the cocoa farmer who was harvesting his cocoa crop, he was busy at his work. He fixed his eyes. He kept his attention while harvesting. In the same way, our Rufus Okeke's eyes were looking at the money who were red in color. This is what was remembered by our Rufus Okeke. At this point, he heard a muffled voice of the policeman asking the electoral officer what the man was doing inside. At this moment, at this point of time, he heard a muffled voice in a sense, in a very low voice, the voice that was coming out from the direction where the policeman stood. He heard the muffled voice of the policeman. At the moment, he got to know about the voice of the policeman which came from the direction where he stood out at the entrance of the voting booth. He heard it asking, what was the policeman asking the electoral officer is that what was the man doing inside? What the man was doing inside, the man who had just gone inside, what had he done so far? What was he doing inside? Abina Pikin in the barn, he asked the electoral officer this question. Doesn't this man who has just gone inside cast his vote? Doesn't he put his vote? Doesn't he cast his vote for? That is what he asked the electoral officer over there. Quick as lightning, a thought leaped into Rufus' mind. Rufus Okeke becomes Rufus Okeke became as quick as lightning. A thought leaped into Rufus' mind. The V1 form of leaped is leap, which means pass. As he became so active, he became as active as lightning moves into his mind. That is how he again became very active in all of his actions as he heard the muffled or low voice of the policeman as he asked an electoral officer what was he doing inside. He became very quick in all of his actions. He folded the paper which was brought out of his pocket. The ballot paper which was brought out of his pocket was folded into two pieces by Rufus Okeke, tore it in two along the crease. As he folded the ballot paper into two, there was a crease made. He had torn it into two pieces. which means he had torn it into two pieces all along the way where crease was created, and put one off in each box. As he had with a two piece of ballot papers in his hand, he put one off in each box. Made he made confirmation he made confirmation himself, what we call, he made himself he made himself that he put one of the ballot paper in each of the box. He took the precaution of putting the first off into Madhuka's box. He took the precaution before letting himself going out of the voting booth. He took the precaution. Necessary precautions were taken by our Rufus Okeke, whether he had put his vote for Madhuka, as he had taken an oath or promise on that he was scared of the Ai, which was a native deity, so that he took the precaution of himself of putting the first of his ballot paper into Madhuka's box and confirming the action verbally. I vote for Madhuka. He made a confirmation over there, saying verbally, I vote for Madhuka. After coming to know that he had cast his vote for Madhuka, he verbally said to himself that I voted for Madhuka. They marked his thumb with an indelible purple ink to prevent his return. They marked in the sense of who does this word they refer to here is that the officers who were inside the voting booth, they marked his thumb with the indelible purple ink. Indeligible in the sense the ink that can't easily be erased off, that can't easily be removed. These officers marked his thumb with that ink which couldn't be easily removed by his thumb, only to prevent his return or comeback, so that to stop anyone to come back again to cast his or her vote inside this voting booth. These electoral officers who were assigned to carry out their actions on the day of elections, who were inside this election booth, they marked our Rufus Okeke's thumb with this indelible ink, that was the ink which couldn't easily be removed, only to stop him coming back, stopped him to come back to this voting booth, and he went out of the booth as jauntily as he had gone in. After giving his oath for both of them by putting each pieces of ballot paper that he had in his hand, he had made his way out of the booth as jauntily in a sense, happily as he had gone in. At the moment when he got himself inside this voting booth, he was in a happy mode. In the similar manner, our Rufus Wakeke made his way, or he put his foot outside of this voting booth as happily as he was inside the voting booth. This is how That's how our author of this story, Chinua Achebe, has concluded this story. Students, you people are asked to go through all the questions that are asked for you people on the page number of 114 and 15. And moreover, I thank you all for listening to me all through the way. Thank you.